The scent of copper filled my nostrils as I dragged myself through the Syrian desert, my best friend's blood soaking through my tactical gear. Dawn was breaking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson that matched the stains on my uniform. "Stay with me, Jace," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the whistling desert wind. "Just a little longer." 12 hours earlier, our mission had been clear. Infiltrate the underground bunker, eliminate the terrorist cell, secure intelligence, and extract. Simple. Plain. The kind of operation the Poseidon's ghosts had executed flawlessly dozens of times before. I couldn't have been more wrong. The night was moonless, perfect for our approach. 6 of us moved like shadows across the terrain, our night vision giving the landscape an eerie green glow. I signaled to Torres on my right, watching him disappear around the eastern entrance. Jace Hartman, my second-in-command and oldest friend, gave me the nod that meant everything was in position. "Poseidon Actual, this is Ghost Lead. We're at the threshold, ready to breach on your mark," I whispered into my comm. "Ghost Lead, you are clear to engage. Good hunting." The first sign that something was wrong came when we breached the bunker. Instead of the expected resistance, we found state-of-the-art American weapons stacked in neat rows. "Captain," Garcia called out, his voice tight with tension. "These are Chimera Industries prototypes. They're not even in general military circulation yet." Jace crouched beside a crate, running his fingers over the embossed logo. "Ryker, we need to document this. Something's not adding up." I was about to respond when the radio crackled with static, then went dead. The silence lasted only a second before the first missile hit. The explosion rocked the bunker, sending us scrambling for cover. Concrete dust filled the air, choking and blinding us as we tried to regroup. "Contact. Multiple hostiles, northeast corridor," Foster shouted, his rifle already firing in controlled bursts. Through the chaos, I saw Jace take point, moving to secure our position when the second missile hit. The world slowed down as I watched him thrown backwards, his body crumpling against the wall, a dark stain spreading across his chest. "Man down," I screamed, diving toward him as the bunker began to collapse around us. The roof gave way between our position and the rest of the team, splitting our unit in two. Torres's voice came through the fractured comm system. "Captain, we're cut off. Heavy resistance from all sides. Fall back to extraction point Bravo," I ordered, dragging Jace behind a stack of crates as Garcia and Foster provided covering fire. "We'll rendezvous there." Jace's breathing was labored, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth as I applied pressure to his wound. "Ryker," he gasped, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "The package?" "Athena." "Save your strength," I insisted, working to stabilize him. "We're getting out of here." His eyes, clear despite the pain, locked onto mine. "No, you don't understand. Athena isn't just data. It's proof. They knew we were coming." Foster discovered a hidden exit tunnel while Garcia rigged the remaining explosives to cover our retreat. We moved as quickly as Jace's condition would allow, the sound of pursuit growing closer with each passing minute. The tunnel opened onto a rocky outcrop overlooking the desert. The night air should have felt like freedom, but as we emerged, the crack of a sniper rifle split the silence. Garcia fell without a sound, a bullet through his throat. "Contact!" Foster yelled, pushing me and Jace back into partial cover. He never saw the pressure plate until his boot was already on it. The mine detonated with a blinding flash and Foster was gone. I felt something tear through my thigh, searing white-hot pain that nearly made me black out. But adrenaline kept me moving, half carrying, half dragging Jace down the rocky slope. "Leave me," he mumbled, his skin ashen in the pre-dawn light. "Not a chance in hell," I grunted, ignoring the blood streaming down my own leg. We made it another mile before Jace lost consciousness. By then, the sun was beginning to rise, turning the sand around us into a glittering sea of gold. Beautiful and deadly. I remember thinking how strange it was that something so peaceful could exist in the same world where men plotted to kill their own soldiers. Because that's what had happened. We weren't caught in crossfire. We were targets. As the heat built and my vision began to swim, I heard the distinctive buzz of a drone overhead. They were hunting us, making sure the job was finished. I had one flare left. One chance to bring that drone close enough. Jace's last words echoed in my mind as I prepared to make my stand. "Package? Athena." Whatever Athena was, it had cost my team their lives. And someone was going to pay. 8 months of hospital beds, surgeries, and physical therapy had changed me. The man who stared back at me from the bathroom mirror in the military hospital was a stranger, hollow-eyed, with a face that had forgotten how to smile. "Captain Maddox," the doctor said, appearing in the doorway behind me. "Your discharge papers are ready. How's the leg feeling today?" I leaned on my cane, testing my weight. Like someone replaced my bones with ground glass. He nodded, unfazed by my description. "That's to be expected. The nerve damage will take more time to heal completely. Tom. That's what everyone kept prescribing. Time to heal. Time to grieve. Time to forget." But I had no intention of forgetting. After collecting my Purple Heart and shaking the appropriate hands, I found myself cornered by Marcus Coldwell, a military intelligence officer I'd worked with on 2 previous deployments. "Walk with me," he said quietly, guiding me toward an empty courtyard. Once we were alone, Coldwell's professional demeanor slipped. "The official story is bullshit, Ryker. Your team didn't go down in a training flight. Tell me something I don't know." He glanced around before continuing. 3 members of your squad are listed as MIA, not Kia, including Torres." My heart rate spiked. Torres is alive? Unknown. But his body wasn't recovered with the others. Coldwell's voice dropped even lower. "There's an internal investigation, but it's been blocked at every turn. Someone up high doesn't want anyone digging." "Chimera Industries," I said. His eyebrows raised slightly. "Be careful what names you throw around, Captain. Victor Lennox has friends in places that make the Pentagon look like a public library." Before he walked away, he pressed a thumb drive into my palm. "I never gave you this. And we never had this conversation." The San Diego air felt foreign after months in sterile hospital rooms. As the cab pulled up to my house, I spotted Tatum's silhouette in the window. My wife. The woman I dreamed of coming home to. So why did my instincts scream danger? The surveillance van 2 blocks down wasn't exactly subtle. Government issue, poorly disguised as a utility vehicle. I pretended not to notice as I limped up the driveway. Tatum's embrace was perfect. Just tight enough, just long enough. Her smile was flawless. Her eyes were dead. "I've missed you so much," she whispered, her hand lingering on my chest. "I was beginning to think they'd never let you come home." I kissed her forehead, noting the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. "You know me. Too stubborn to stay down." Our house felt different. Subtle changes in furniture arrangement. New security system. And something else I couldn't quite put my finger on. That night, while Tatum slept, I checked the safe hidden behind the bookshelf in my office. The combination worked, but the dial moved too smoothly, recently used. Inside, everything appeared untouched, but the stack of classified documents was arranged too neatly. Someone had gone through them, trying too hard to leave everything exactly as they'd found it. I needed space to think. In the morning, I told Tatum I needed time to readjust. "Of course," she said, concern etched perfectly on her face. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." From my hotel room, I accessed the backup server for my home security system, the one Tatum didn't know about. 8 months of footage compressed into a night of revelation. Victor Lennox, billionaire defense contractor, owner of Chimera Industries, visiting my home at least twice a month. His hand resting possessively on the small of Tatum's back as she led him into our bedroom. The woman I'd married was a stranger. I caught fragments of their conversations through the home system's microphones. "He doesn't know anything about Athena." The documents were supposedly destroyed. If Hartman had a second package, Ryker couldn't have received it. The doctors confirmed he was unconscious when brought in. My fingers brushed against the small incision on my prosthetic leg brace where I'd hidden Jace's microchip. The real Athena. Safe where no one would think to look. Through Coldwell's thumb drive, I accessed classified military reports. Chimera Industries had secured a $300 million contract for sector stabilization after our training accident. A convenient windfall for the company that had engineered our deaths. I thought about confronting Tatum, demanding answers. But years of special operations had taught me the value of patience. In chess, revealing your knowledge too soon gives your opponent time to adapt. Better to become a ghost among the living. To watch. To wait. I stared at the chessboard on the hotel desk, moving a black knight into position. The game was just beginning. Outside my window, San Diego's lights blurred through the rain. Somewhere out there, Torres might still be alive. Jace's widow Kira was working to decrypt the microchip. And Chimera Industries was continuing operations, unaware that one of their targets had survived. They tried to bury us. They didn't realize we were seeds. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized years ago. "Rodriguez," a gruff voice answered. "It's Maddox." Silence, then, "Holy shit. They told us you were dead." That's what I wanted them to think, I replied, watching the rain streak down the window. I need your help. It's about Poseidon's ghosts. More silence. Then, when and where? The first piece was moving into place. The doctors say you're experiencing moderate to severe PTSD, Tatum said, her voice dripping with concern as she placed a cup of coffee in front of me. It's perfectly normal after what you've been through. I let my hand tremble slightly as I reached for the mug. 3 weeks back home and the role of damaged soldier had become a second skin. Not entirely fake. The nightmares were real, the phantom pain in my leg genuine. But the confusion and disorientation I displayed for Tatum's benefit? Pure theater. The physical therapist thinks I'm making progress, I replied, my voice deliberately unsteady. Though I still can't walk more than a few blocks without the cane. Tatum's smile didn't reach her eyes. You'll get there, honey. We have all the time in the world. No, we don't, I thought, watching her check her phone for the third time in 10 minutes. The clock was ticking on multiple fronts. Later that afternoon, I made my way to the harbor, using my physical therapy as cover. The small seafood restaurant overlooking the marina had outdoor seating perfect for my purpose. Public enough to avoid suspicion, noisy enough to prevent eavesdropping. Kira Hartman was already waiting, sunglasses hiding red-rimmed eyes, her dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. Jace's widow looked both stronger and more fragile than when I'd last seen her. Did anyone follow you? Were her first words as I sat down. 3 different tails rotate shifts. I lost them 2 miles back. I placed a napkin on the table between us. The microchip is underneath. Don't touch it yet. Her hands remained perfectly still. How did you get it out of Syria? Jace gave it to me before he died. Called it, the real Athena. I kept it in my prosthetic leg compartment during my hospital stay. A fleeting smile crossed her face. Smart. He always said you were the most paranoid bastard he'd ever met. The smile vanished. Now I understand why. Can you decrypt it? It'll take weeks. The encryption is military grade, possibly higher. Her fingers curled around her water glass. I've set up a secure system isolated from any networks. But Ryker, you need to understand, once I start digging there's no going back. I passed that point watching my team die in the desert. Kira leaned forward slightly. There's something else you should know. I didn't leave military intelligence voluntarily. 3 weeks before your mission, I flagged several unusual procurement patterns. Chimera Industries equipment showing up where it shouldn't. The next day, I was escorted off base with a psychiatric discharge in my file. The pieces were falling into place. They removed anyone who might connect the dots. And then sent you in to die. She discreetly palmed the napkin. I'll contact you through the system we established. Better go different ways. As she left, I thought about her background. Former military intelligence analyst with top security clearance, forced out just before our mission. Not coincidence. Nothing was coincidence anymore. You've upgraded our security system, Tatum observed that evening, watching me adjust a new camera in the living room. After what happened in Syria? I just need to feel safe. I gave her my best haunted look. I keep thinking they'll come for me here. She touched my shoulder. No one's coming for you, Ryker. Liar. The new system served 2 purposes. Appearing properly paranoid while actually allowing me to monitor all communications in the house. Including Tatum's. 3 days later, Rodriguez met me at the VA hospital after my therapy session. Torres isn't the only one, he said, his voice low as we sat in a far corner of the garden. Bell and Kovic, both listed as MIA from your team, turned up dead. Bell in Thailand, apparent suicide. Kovic in a car accident in Germany. Suicide and accidents. How convenient. Rodriguez's weathered face hardened. Bell had 2 bullet holes in the back of his head. Some suicide. And Chimera Industries? They're everywhere now. Military contracts tripled since your mission went sideways. And Lennox is practically best friends with half the Joint Chiefs. Back home, I discovered something unexpected. A 3rd surveillance system in my house, one neither Tatum nor I had installed. Microscopic cameras, military grade, embedded in light fixtures, electrical outlets, even picture frames. That night, I accessed the first decrypted files from Kira through our secure channel. What I saw turned my blood cold. Chimera wasn't just selling weapons, they were running a network of double agents. The files contained names of corrupted officers deliberately sending elite teams to eliminate inconvenient witnesses. Operations across 3 continents, all ending with similar accidents. I was connecting these threads when my secure phone vibrated with a message from an anonymous account. Journalist Simon Bishop. Research into defense contracts. Possible ally. I created a dummy account and reached out to Bishop with just enough information to pique his interest without revealing myself. The chessboard was getting crowded. If I had initially thought Tatum was an unwitting pawn in Lennox's game, I was quickly revising my assessment. The precision of her deception, the calculated concern, the way she probed for information while appearing to comfort me, this wasn't amateur work. My wife was a professional. The question now wasn't whether she was working for Chimera, but for how long. Had our entire marriage been part of the operation? As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt her watching me in the darkness, both of us pretending to be someone we weren't. Two predators circling, waiting for the other to show weakness. I watched Tatum through the bathroom mirror as she slipped something into my pain medication when she thought I wasn't looking. The subtle movement of her wrist, the practiced way she returned the bottle to the exact same position. This wasn't her first time. Analysis of my discarded pills had revealed a cocktail of psychotropics. Not enough to cause serious damage, but sufficient to cloud judgment and create mild disorientation. Perfect for keeping a suspicious husband off balance. What she didn't know was that I'd been replacing her doctored pills with clean ones for weeks. "Your leg seems to be bothering you more today," she said, her voice lilting with concern as she entered the bathroom. "Did you take your medicine?" I grimaced and braced myself against the sink. "Just about to." Her eyes followed my hand as I swallowed the pill with water. Satisfied, she smiled. "I've scheduled dinner with Victor next week. He's been asking about you, concerned about your recovery." "Victor." I let my voice slur slightly. "Lennox? Why would he care about me?" "He's an old family friend, remember? My Uncle Richard introduced us years ago." Another lie. Before Syria, she'd never mentioned Victor Lennox or any connection to him. The web of deception was intricate, woven long before I'd stumbled into it. During my medical checkup the next day, I had Dr. Patel, an old friend who owed me from our deployment in Afghanistan, examine a suspicious lump I'd discovered in my shoulder. "Jesus, Ryker," he whispered as the scan revealed a miniature tracking device embedded beneath my skin. "This is military-grade tech. Not commercially available. Can you remove it?" He shook his head. "Not without alerting whoever's monitoring it. The sudden signal loss would be a red flag." "Then leave it," I decided. "It might be useful to feed them false information." On my way out, Patel pressed a burner phone into my hand. "Coldwell called me 2 weeks ago, asking about your medical records." I didn't like his questions. My instincts went on high alert. "What kind of questions?" "About your mental state. Whether you'd mentioned any classified information. If you seemed paranoid." Patel's voice dropped. "Be careful, Ryker. Something big is happening and you're in the middle of it." The dinner with Lennox was at an upscale restaurant overlooking the bay. He was exactly as his photos suggested, tall, silver-haired, with the confident ease of a man accustomed to power. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "Captain Maddox," he said warmly. "It's an honor to meet a genuine hero." I played my part, appearing slightly disoriented and hesitant. "Appreciate the sentiment, but I'm no hero. Just did my job." "Too modest," Lennox replied. "Men like you are the backbone of this country." Throughout dinner, I carefully measured my wine consumption while Tatum and Lennox exchanged glances laden with hidden meaning. I caught snippets of their coded conversation, references to delivery schedules, and the Phoenix situation. During dessert, I made my move. Reaching across the table for the salt, I deliberately knocked over my wine glass, spilling red liquid across Lennox's pristine white shirt. "I'm so sorry," I slurred, creating a commotion as Tatum rushed to help clean up. In the confusion, I slipped a device Kira had provided into Lennox's jacket pocket, a modified military-grade penetration tool designed to clone his phone. "Don't worry about it," Lennox said smoothly, though his eyes hardened momentarily. "Accidents happen." Back at the hotel room I'd secretly maintained, I received the first data dump from Lennox's phone. Most files were encrypted, but messages between him and Tatum were clear. "He's becoming more lucid. The medication isn't working as effectively. Increase the dosage gradually. We need to know if he received anything from Hartman." "I'm handling it." "He suspects nothing." Meanwhile, Kira's decryption efforts revealed a shocking truth. Tatum's file identified her as operative nemesis, a high-level Chimera agent. She wasn't a senator's daughter as she'd claimed. Though she did have connections to powerful political figures, connections she'd cultivated as an operative. Most damning of all, she had been working for Chimera years before our marriage. Our entire relationship had been a monitoring operation. She was assigned to you specifically, Kira told me during our secure call. They suspected your unit was investigating Chimera's weapons shipments. So she married me to keep tabs on my operations. And to ensure you never got too close to the truth. The Syria operation hadn't been the first where a team was eliminated after discovering Chimera's involvement. Files showed at least 3 other units lost in action, after encountering Chimera weapons in enemy hands. Chimera's money flowed through a complex network of offshore accounts linked to several politicians. The financial scheme was so intricate that we needed additional evidence to fully expose it. I created a map of evidence in a secret storage unit, while deliberately leaving false clues in places Tatum might discover. That night, I watched through my hidden cameras as Tatum searched my office after she thought I was asleep. Her methodical movements revealed her training, checking all the standard hiding places, photographing documents, then replacing everything exactly as she'd found it. She reported to Lennox via an encrypted call. He's definitely investigating something, but I can't find concrete evidence. His behavior suggests he knows more than he's letting on. Lennox's response was clear. Find out what he knows. Whatever it takes. As I watched my wife plot against me, I felt an odd sense of clarity. The pieces were moving exactly as I'd anticipated. The Queen had revealed her position on the board. Now it was time to set a trap for the King. The secure message from Kira came at 3 in the morning. Unusual activity detected. Chimera's entire network going dark for 12 hours. Something big was happening. Organizations like Chimera didn't shut down communications unless they were extremely concerned about security breaches. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Tatum, and made my way to the bathroom where the shower's white noise would mask my conversation. Is the encryption still holding? I whispered into the burner phone. So far, Kira replied. But my source inside Chimera says Lennox has called an emergency meeting. Physical presence only, no digital records. When and where? Tomorrow night. Their secure bunker beneath the San Diego headquarters. I ended the call and flushed the toilet to maintain my cover. When I returned to the bedroom, Tatum's breathing remained deep and regular, too regular for someone truly asleep. Coldwell's inside information and Kira's hacking skills gave us a schematic of Chimera's underground facility. 6 levels of reinforced concrete with military-grade security systems. The meeting will be in the Eagle Room, Level 5, Rodriguez said as we gathered in the abandoned warehouse that served as our temporary headquarters. Completely shielded from electronic surveillance. I studied the building plans. So we can't get ears inside the actual meeting room. Not directly, Kira replied, but the ventilation system connects to a maintenance area 1 level up. If we could place a device there. I have someone, I said. Former Poseidon's ghost who works tech support for Chimera now. Ellis. He was transferred to a desk job after losing his leg in Afghanistan. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Can you trust him? He owes me his life. And more importantly, he hated what happened to our team. Within hours, Ellis confirmed he could place our listening device. The risk was enormous. If caught, he'd face charges of corporate espionage at minimum, treason at worst. You seem distracted today, Tatum observed as we ate breakfast. Is the pain worse? I rubbed my leg, playing into her expectations. Slept poorly. Dreams about Syria again. Her hand covered mine, the perfect picture of wifely concern. Maybe you should increase your medication tonight. Maybe, I agreed, noting how quickly she suggested more drugs. Later that evening, I told her I was meeting my physical therapist for an emergency session to work on inflammation. Another lie in our house of deception. As I drove to our surveillance post near Chimera headquarters, Kira's voice came through the secure earpiece. Alice is in position. Device active and transmitting. The warehouse we'd commandeered gave us a clear view of Chimera's main entrance. Black SUVs with tinted windows arrived one after another, disgorging men in expensive suits and military uniforms. 7 generals, 4 intelligence directors, and at least a dozen politicians, Rodriguez muttered as he lowered his binoculars. Whatever this is, it goes straight to the top. The audio from our device crackled to life just as Lennox began speaking. Gentlemen, I've called this meeting because we have a security situation. Someone is accessing our classified files. The room went silent before erupting in concerned murmurs. How bad is the breach? A voice asked. Unknown at present, Lennox replied. But we've traced some unusual activity back to San Diego. My blood ran cold. Had they discovered Kira's intrusion? Is it Maddox? Another voice asked. Possibly, Lennox said. Tatum reports unusual behavior, but no concrete evidence he's recovered any files from Hartman. He needs to be contained, someone insisted. The Athena files would destroy everything we've built. Agreed, Lennox responded. But we must be cautious. As a decorated war hero, his death would attract attention. We need something more natural. What about Project Scylla? Testing begins next month. Lennox's voice hardened. That's precisely what we need to protect. If Maddox or anyone else discovers the true nature of Scylla, our government contracts would be terminated immediately. As the meeting continued, the full scale of Chimera's operation became clear. They were developing weapons under the guise of medical research, selling them to create conflicts, then securing contracts to combat the same threats they'd armed. We've allocated $3 billion to the Syria expansion, Lennox explained. The weapons test there proved more successful than anticipated. They'd used my team as guinea pigs to demonstrate their weapons' effectiveness. What about the remaining witnesses? A new voice asked. Being handled, Lennox assured them. I've engaged the Gray Man to deal with Maddox personally. An assassin. My time was running out. The meeting continued for another hour, detailing operations across a dozen countries, payoffs to government officials and plans for expansion. As the executives dispersed, Kira's voice came through my earpiece. Ryker, I just intercepted a text from Tatum to Lennox. Weekend retreat confirmed. Taking him to the lake house Friday. I felt a cold certainty settle over me. The lake house, isolated, private, the perfect place for an accident. She's setting you up, Rodriguez said, stating the obvious. Good, I replied, already formulating a plan. Because I'm counting on it. The trap was set, but I wasn't the prey they expected. You'll love the lake house, Tatum said, her hand resting lightly on my thigh as she drove. The isolation will do you good. No distractions, no reminders of Syria. Except for the assassin waiting to kill me, I thought, watching the city fade into mountains through the passenger window. Sounds perfect, I replied, adjusting my position to ease the genuine pain in my leg. The 3-hour drive had aggravated the old injury. How did you find this place again? A colleague recommended it. Another carefully constructed lie. My earpiece, disguised as a hearing aid supposedly for tinnitus caused by explosion trauma, crackled silently. Kira's voice came through, pitched low. Satellite shows a vehicle already at the location. Arrived 2 hours ago. The Gray Man was waiting. I closed my eyes, pretending to doze while mentally reviewing the cabin's layout from the rental listing photos. 2 bedrooms, large living area with exposed beams, kitchen overlooking the lake, wraparound deck. Numerous entry points. Minimal cover. We're almost there, Tatum announced an hour later, turning onto a gravel road that wound through dense pine forest. Just another few miles. The cabin appeared picture-perfect. Rustic logs, panoramic windows, secluded on the lakeshore. No other houses visible. No witnesses. It's beautiful, I said, helping unload our bags with exaggerated difficulty, making sure Tatum noted my vulnerability. Inside, I limped around with obvious discomfort, establishing my limited mobility for whoever might be watching. Every motion carefully calculated to appear random while I checked sight lines, exit points, and potential hiding spots. Why don't you rest while I prepare dinner? Tatum suggested, eyeing my pronounced limp with satisfaction. I think I'll take some pain meds and lie down first, I agreed, making my way to the bedroom. Once alone, I quietly confirmed my preparations. The specialized equipment Rodriguez had helped conceal in my bags remained undetected. I slipped a military-grade tactical knife under the mattress and positioned a collapsible baton beside the bed, hidden but accessible. Movement in the woods east side, Rodriguez's voice came through my earpiece. He and Ellis had positioned themselves a half-mile away, monitoring the perimeter through thermal imaging. Copy that, I whispered, checking my watch. The timing aligned with my predictions. The Gray Man would want to complete his job at night, staging it as either a suicide or a tragic accident. Tatum called me for dinner, a romantic setup with candles and wine on the deck overlooking the darkening lake. The perfect final meal for a doomed man. To new beginnings, she toasted, her smile never reaching her eyes. I clinked glasses, taking a minimal sip while appearing to drink deeply. The wine was likely drugged, standard procedure to ensure an unresisting target. Speaking of new beginnings, I said, injecting subtle slurring into my speech, I've been thinking about us. About the future. Concern flickered across her face, genuine this time. Unexpected deviations from script always worried operatives. What do you mean? I reached across the table, taking her hand. I know things haven't been right since I came home. I've been distant, difficult. But I want to try again, Tatum. Really try. The conflict in her eyes was fascinating to watch. The professional calculating how to respond versus whatever human part of her remained. Of course, she finally said, squeezing my hand. That's all I've wanted. 2 more glasses of wine and I began my performance. Increasingly unsteady movements, slurred speech, unfocused eyes. The perfect intoxicated, drugged target. I think I need to lie down, I mumbled, staggering to my feet. Tatum helped me to the bedroom, easing me onto the mattress with practiced care. Rest now. I'll clean up. As soon as she left, I activated the countermeasures. Small devices that would interfere with thermal imaging and motion sensors the assassin would likely use. He's here, Alice warned through my earpiece. Moving toward the west side of the cabin. I positioned myself on the bed, appearing deeply unconscious while remaining acutely alert. My hand rested beneath the pillow, inches from the knife. 10 minutes later, I heard Tatum speaking quietly in the living room, her voice too low to distinguish words. Then the sound of the front door opening and closing. The cabin fell silent except for the gentle lapping of lake water against the shore and the distant call of a night bird. I controlled my breathing, counting seconds that stretched into minutes. A floorboard creaked near the bedroom door. Then another. The door opened silently, a shadow moving through darkness. Military precision in every step. The gray man approached the bed, a syringe in his gloved hand, designed to look like a heart attack or stroke, no doubt. I waited until he leaned over me, his focus on finding a vein in my neck. The moment his weight shifted forward, I struck. My first blow knocked the syringe away. The second caught him in the throat. He reacted with impressive speed, but I'd counted on his training. Like most professional killers, he would target non-injured areas, assuming my wounded leg was a vulnerability rather than my strength. When he dodged away from my supposedly good leg, I swung my injured leg with all my force, catching him off guard. The shock on his face was almost comical as decades of special operations training met his clinical assassination techniques. In the darkness, we collided in a brutal, silent dance of survival. Blood trickled from my split lip as I pinned the gray man to the floor, my forearm pressed against his windpipe. The fight had been brutal. Furniture splintered, glass shattered, both of us bleeding from multiple wounds. Who sent you? I growled, though I already knew the answer. His eyes, cold and calculating even at the edge of consciousness, gave nothing away. Professional to the end. I eased the pressure slightly, allowing him a gasping breath. Lennox or Tatum? Both, he wheezed finally. But the original contract came from higher up. Where's Tatum now? A mirthless smile flickered across his face. Gone. She doesn't stick around for the messy parts. I increased the pressure again. Tell me about Syria. His expression changed, surprised then understanding. It was a field test. Your team was chosen specifically. Why us? High-value target elimination with minimum witnesses. Your unit had encountered Chimera tech before. They needed to clean house. I thought of Jace bleeding out in the desert sand, of Garcia and Foster dying during our escape. All for a weapons demonstration. And Tatum? What was her role? The assassin's laugh turned into a cough. She was field commander for the operation. Coordinated the entire elimination. My vision blurred with rage, but I forced myself to remain focused. And Torres? Is he alive? He was. Chimera keeps him on a short leash. Uses him for their own operations now. Rodriguez and Alice burst through the bedroom door, weapons raised. We lost visual, Rodriguez explained, surveying the destruction. Thermal imaging went dark and Tatum's vehicle left at high speed. I nodded toward the gray man, secure him. He has information we need. As they zip-tied the assassin, my secure phone vibrated with an incoming message from Kira. Massive data breach at Chimera. Someone's dumping files from the inside. I clicked the attached link to find classified documents flooding onto secure servers. Operational details, financial records, evidence of illegal weapons sales. Did you do this? I asked the gray man. He shook his head. Looks like you're not the only one playing both sides. A second message from Kira appeared, decoded final section of Athena files. Operation was sanctioned at highest levels as weapons test and witness elimination. Confirmed Torres alive, being used as Chimera asset in black operations. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture uglier than I'd imagined. The next morning, I checked into the psychiatric ward at the VA hospital, continuing my carefully crafted narrative of deteriorating mental health. The controlled environment provided the perfect alibi and secure communication hub away from Chimera's surveillance. "Your wife called," Dr. Lowenstein said during our session. "She's very concerned about your disappearance from the lake house." I stared vacantly at the wall, playing my role. "I don't remember leaving. I just needed to get away." The doctor made a note in his file. "These fugue states can be symptoms of severe PTSD. We'll adjust your medication." After he left, I used the secure tablet Kira had provided to continue our operation. The gray man, now securely held at one of Rodriguez's safe houses, had provided valuable intelligence about Chimera's command structure. "Lennox is in full panic mode," Kira reported during our encrypted video call. "The data leak exposed connections to dozens of government officials. He's hunting for the source of the breach." "Any sign of Tatum?" "None. She's gone completely dark." "And Coldwell? Has he resurfaced?" Kira's expression darkened. "That's why I called. Ellis found him." The image on screen shifted to show a body, Coldwell, a bullet hole precisely centered in his forehead, staged to look like suicide in his apartment. "When?" "Last night. After our operation at the lake house. A cleansing operation. Lennox was eliminating loose ends." "There's something else," Kira continued. "In the final Athena files, we found evidence that Torres wasn't just a survivor. He was Chimera's primary source of intelligence on the Poseidon's ghosts." The revelation hit me like physical blow. Torres betrayed us? It's complicated. Chimera had leverage, his family. They threatened his wife and children if he didn't cooperate. I thought of Torres, the most family-oriented member of our team, always showing pictures of his kids. The perfect pressure point. Can we extract him? Working on it. But Ryker. Tatum's in the files too. She was the second sniper in Syria. My hands clenched involuntarily. The woman I'd shared my life with had been aiming a rifle at my team as they died in the desert. A nurse knocked on the door, signaling the end of my therapy time. "We need to accelerate the timeline," I told Kira before ending the call. "Lennox is consolidating power and eliminating witnesses. We move on the primary objective in 24 hours. That night, as I lay in the narrow hospital bed, I reviewed our position on this deadly chessboard. Lennox was sacrificing pawns but still had powerful pieces in play. Tatum had gone rogue, potentially playing both sides. And somewhere Torres was alive, a knight whose next move I couldn't predict. I stared at the ceiling, calculating probabilities and contingencies. Tomorrow we would infiltrate Chimera's main database and extract the final evidence needed to bring down Lennox's empire. Sleep eluded me as I remembered Jace's last words in the desert. "Make them pay, brother." And I would, whatever the cost. The yacht gleamed white against the midnight ocean, Lennox's $40 million floating sanctuary anchored 3 miles offshore. Security lights swept across the water at regular intervals, while armed guards patrolled the deck. 14 guards total, Rodriguez confirmed through my earpiece. 4 on rotation on deck, the rest inside. Satellite thermal imaging shows a heat signature in the lower cabin, likely our target. "Copy that," I whispered, my body submerged in the cold Pacific water. The specialized wetsuit Kira had procured masked my thermal signature, making me virtually invisible to the yacht's security systems. After signing myself out of the VA hospital against medical advice, I'd moved quickly. Chimera's data leak had accelerated Lennox's timeline. He was burning evidence and eliminating witnesses, including Kira. Her kidnapping 36 hours ago had been efficiently executed. Professional work. The message was clear. Surrender the microchip and all copies of Athena, or Jace's widow would die like her husband. They hadn't expected me to have contingencies in place. I approached the yacht from beneath, using a military-grade underwater propulsion device. Years of SEAL training made the approach second nature, despite my leg injury sending occasional spikes of pain through my body. The yacht's hull loomed above me, its underwater lights creating pools of illumination I carefully avoided. I attached the specialized climbing device to the stern, just below the waterline, and began my ascent. Timing was crucial. Rodriguez and Ellis would create a diversion on the port side in exactly 3 minutes, drawing the guards' attention while I boarded from starboard. As I reached the railing, I heard a familiar voice that froze my blood. "The extraction team reports no microchip at his hotel room or storage unit." Torres. My former teammate stood mere feet away, speaking to someone I couldn't see. "If he has it, he's keeping it on his person." "He'll bring it," a woman replied. "Tatum. He won't let Kira die." "You sound certain." "I know my husband." "Did she?" Or had she only known the version of me she'd been assigned to monitor? The diversion came right on schedule, a small explosion on a buoy 200 yards from the port side. As the guards rushed to investigate, I slipped over the railing and into the shadows of the upper deck. Moving silently, I made my way below decks, neutralizing one guard with a sleeper hold before he could raise the alarm. The yacht's interior was opulent: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, priceless art. The trappings of wealth built on blood. Following the schematics Ellis had obtained, I navigated toward the main cabin where thermal imaging had shown Kira being held. As I approached, I heard Lennox's voice, smooth and controlled. "Your husband died believing he was serving his country. Admirable but ultimately foolish." "Ryker will kill you," Kira responded, her voice steady despite what must have been hours of captivity. Lennox laughed. "Captain Maddox is a broken man with a leg full of titanium rods. His wife betrayed him. His country abandoned him. And now he'll die trying to save you." I peered through the small window in the door. Kira sat bound to a chair, a cut on her forehead but otherwise appearing unharmed. Lennox stood nearby drinking whiskey. 3 guards positioned around the room and Torres by the door, his expression unreadable. I needed to create an opening. Taking a deep breath, I activated the emergency signal to Rodriguez. 20 seconds later, the yacht's power cut out, plunging the interior into darkness. In the confusion, I breached the door, taking down the first guard with a silenced shot before he could react. The second managed to fire wildly before my knife found his throat. The third guard tackled me, his greater weight driving me backward into the wall. As we grappled in the darkness, I felt my injured leg buckling beneath me. A shot rang out and the guard collapsed against me, suddenly limp. When emergency lighting flickered on, I saw Torres standing with his pistol raised, the guard dead at my feet. "Torres. We don't have much time," he said tersely, already moving to free Kira. "Where's Lennox?" "Panic room," Torres replied, cutting through Kira's restraints. "Sealed himself in when the lights went out. Tatum's with him." I stared at my former teammate, trying to reconcile this man with the traitor described in the files. "Why are you helping us?" Torres met my gaze, his eyes haunted. "I never wanted any of this, Ryker. They had my family. I had to play along until I could get them to safety. You fed them intelligence on our team. Sanitized. Limited. I helped Jace compile the Athena files secretly." His voice cracked. "I told him to give you the chip if anything happened." Kira stood, rubbing her wrists. "He's telling the truth, Ryker. The full Athena files confirm it. He was playing both sides, trying to protect everyone." Alarms began blaring throughout the yacht. Our window was closing. "Lennox's panic room has a database," Torres explained quickly. "Every operation, every contract, every assassination, it's all there. That's what we need." "Where?" "2 decks down. But it's behind multiple security systems. We'll need Tatum's access codes." I checked my weapon. "Then let's go convince her to cooperate." As we moved through the yacht, dispatching guards along the way, I thought of Tatum, the woman I'd married, the stranger I'd slept beside for years. The operative who'd helped orchestrate my team's deaths. Soon we would be face to face again with nothing left between us but the truth. And the truth was a bullet. "He's heading for the helipad," Torres warned as we navigated the yacht's labyrinthine corridors. "Standard escape protocol, the chopper is always fueled and ready." Gunfire erupted from the deck above, the distinctive sound of Rodriguez's assault rifle providing cover for our advance. "Ellis has disabled the yacht's communications," Kira reported, monitoring the tactical feed on a commandeered security tablet. "No distress calls are getting out." We reached a secured door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," the electronic lock blinking red. Torres swiped a security card, but the light remained unchanged. "Lennox must have locked it down," he muttered, stepping back. "We'll need to blow it." I shook my head. "Too loud. And we might damage what's inside." I examined the control panel, recognizing the military-grade security system. "This has a manual override. Cover me." As Torres and Kira took defensive positions, I pried open the panel and began bypassing the security protocol, a skill I'd learned during hostage extraction training. 3 minutes of delicate work later, the light blinked green. The room beyond housed Chimera's nerve center. Dozens of servers humming quietly, screens displaying global operations. A digital map on the central monitor showed active Chimera sites across 6 continents, pulsing with real-time data. There, Torres pointed to a reinforced door at the far end. "The secure vault. That's where Lennox keeps the original files." I approached cautiously, checking for traps. Any idea on the access code? 6-digit biometric lock. Needs Lennox's fingerprint and retinal scan, plus either Tatum's or the operational director's authorization. Kira was already connecting her tablet to the main system. I can try to override it, but it'll take time we don't have. The yacht suddenly lurched, throwing us against the walls as an explosion rocked the upper deck. Rodriguez. I activated my comm report. We've got company, his voice crackled through static. 3 boats, Chimera security. They've breached the starboard side. We're holding them off, but not for long. I turned to Torres. How else can we get in there? He hesitated. There's one way. The system has a catastrophic override. In case of emergency, it dumps all data to an off-site server before wiping itself. How do we trigger it? We don't. Only Tatum or Lennox can activate it. As if summoned by her name, the main door burst open. Tatum stood framed in the entrance, a sleek pistol aimed directly at my chest. Her composed exterior had cracked, designer clothes disheveled, a wild look in her eyes. Don't move, she ordered, her gaze flickering between us. Any of you. I met her eyes steadily. Hello, wife. You shouldn't have come here, Ryker. Her voice contained something I'd never heard before, uncertainty. You were supposed to die quietly at the lake house. Sorry to disappoint. She kept the gun trained on me but addressed Torres. I should have known you'd turn. Always too soft for this business. It's over, Tatum, Torres replied. Chimera's operations are exposed. The data leak has already reached intelligence agencies worldwide. Nothing's over. Her voice hardened. Lennox has contingencies for everything. The yacht's about to blow. Timer's already running. I studied her face, reading the subtle tells I'd learned during our years together. But you're not on the helicopter with him, are you? Something flashed in her eyes, rage, betrayal, fear. He left you behind, I pressed. After everything you did for him. The perfect operative, discarded when no longer useful. Shut up. The gun wavered slightly. You know I'm right. You've always been a tool to him, Tatum. Expendable. Her laugh was bitter. And what was I to you? The loving wife? The devoted partner? We were using each other from the beginning. Maybe, I acknowledged, taking a cautious step forward. But I never planned to have you killed when you became inconvenient. Conflict played across her face, the professional operative warring with self-preservation. The vault contains everything. Every operation, every contract, every kill. Including Syria? Especially Syria. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. It was nothing personal, Ryker. Just business. It was personal to me. Those were my men. Her gaze shifted to Torres. And yet you're working with the man who betrayed them. He was protecting his family, I said. What's your excuse? The yacht shuddered again with another explosion, closer this time. An alarm began blaring throughout the vessel. 5 minutes to self-destruct, an automated voice announced. Tatum's expression changed, resolution hardening her features. She lowered the gun slightly and moved to a control panel by the vault. What are you doing? Torres demanded. Ensuring my survival, she replied, entering a complex sequence. And my insurance policy. The vault door hissed open as red warning lights began flashing throughout the room. Emergency protocol activated. Data transfer initiated. Tatum turned back to us. There's your precious evidence. All being copied to a secure server as we speak. She tossed a small device to Kira. Access codes for the transfer location. Why? I asked, genuinely confused by her sudden cooperation. Her smile was cold. Lennox tried to kill me. Now I'm returning the favor. She checked her watch. You have 4 minutes to get off this boat before it explodes. I suggest you use them. Without another word, she turned and sprinted toward the exit. I looked at Torres and Kira. Get what we need. I'm going after her. As I ran through the corridors after my wife, I realized the truth. In this deadly game of chess, the queen had finally chosen a side. Her own. 1 year later, I stood on the cliff overlooking the Pacific, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery orange and gold. Below me, the newly constructed Phoenix Haven Rehabilitation Center gleamed in the fading light, a state-of-the-art facility for veterans recovering from combat injuries and trauma. Quite a view, Torres said, joining me at the edge. His recovery had been slow. The bullet he'd taken during our escape from the yacht had shattered his collarbone and punctured his lung, but he looked stronger now, almost like the man I'd once known. Worth every penny of Lennox's money, I replied. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The funds used to build Phoenix Haven had come directly from Chimera's seized assets. Blood money transformed into a sanctuary for healing. After that night on the yacht, everything had changed. We'd escaped with minutes to spare, the explosion illuminating the night sky behind us as Rodriguez piloted our extraction boat to safety. Tatum had disappeared in the chaos, and Lennox's helicopter had been spotted heading toward an offshore oil platform that served as Chimera's command center. What followed was a race against time. Lennox attempting to destroy evidence while we worked to secure the data Tatum had transferred. The final confrontation on the platform had been brutal, ending with Lennox fatally wounding Tatum before the structure began to collapse from preset explosions. I tried to save him, not from mercy, but from a desire to see justice properly served. In the end, the platform's collapsing structure had made the decision for me, sending him plummeting into the burning sea below. Tatum's body had been recovered. Lennox's never was, despite extensive search efforts. The new group arrives tomorrow, Torres said, interrupting my thoughts. 20 veterans, mostly special operations with combat trauma. I nodded. Are the facilities ready? Kira finished installing the enhanced security systems yesterday. Nothing digital gets in or out without her approval. Speaking of Kira, she approached from the main building, tablet in hand. The year had changed her too. Grief tempered by purpose, her analytical mind now focused on protecting others from experiencing what Jace had suffered. Senator Brentwood's sentencing is official, she announced. 20 years, no possibility of parole. 12 other officials got similar terms. The investigation into Chimera's activities had uncovered corruption reaching the highest levels of government. The trials had dominated headlines for months, exposing decades of conspiracy, illegal weapons sales, and orchestrated conflicts designed to generate defense contracts. Any word on the Asia operations? I asked. She shook her head. Intelligence reports suggest similar activities in Southeast Asia, but nothing concrete yet. We'll keep watching, Torres said. If Chimera tries to resurrect under another name, we'll be ready. The Poseidon Foundation, established with my portion of the settlement, had a dual mission: rehabilitation for veterans and an intelligence division dedicated to preventing another Chimera from emerging. Many considered it vigilante justice. I called it insurance. As the sky darkened, we made our way to the memorial garden at the center's heart. 7 granite stones stood in a circle, one for each member of the Poseidon's ghosts who hadn't lived to see justice done. Torres paused at Jace's stone, placing a hand on the smooth surface. I still feel it, he admitted quietly. The guilt. Even knowing I was forced, that they would have killed my family. You did what you could, I told him. Jace knew the risks. We all did. Not like that. Not from our own people. We stood in silence for a moment, honoring the dead while acknowledging that the wounds they'd left behind would never fully heal. Kira touched my arm gently. The dedication ceremony is at 10 tomorrow. Will you speak? Briefly. Public appearances remained uncomfortable but necessary. The Foundation's high profile deterred potential enemies while attracting needed support. As they headed inside, I remained at the memorial, watching shadows lengthen across the stones. Kira and I had built something unexpected in the aftermath of tragedy, not quite a relationship, but a connection forged through shared loss and purpose. Whatever it was becoming, we approached it carefully, respecting the ghosts that stood between us. My phone buzzed with a security alert. The cemetery where my former teammates were buried had registered a visitor after hours. A figure captured on surveillance footage, too distant to identify clearly, but with a familiar silhouette. Intelligence reports from Southeast Asia had mentioned a new organization emerging with operational patterns similar to Chimera's. Without a body, Lennox's death remained officially unconfirmed. I saved the image file but didn't share it with the others. Not yet. Some battles needed to wait for the right moment. From the center's main building, warm light spilled across the grounds, illuminating the path forward. Inside were Torres and Kira, my new team, bound by a shared past and committed to a different future. Ghosts never completely disappear, I murmured to the memorial stones. But we can learn to live alongside them. On the distant ridge, a silhouette watched for several seconds before dissolving into the gathering fog. Perhaps just shadows playing tricks on tired eyes. Perhaps something more. On my desk inside, a black king waited on a chessboard with a note I'd written to myself. The second game begins soon. I turned toward the light, leaving the darkness behind. For now.